We saw 2018, and of course, blockchain was a center stage at the Africa Tech Summit. 2019, what's different?
I think what we're trying to do with Africa Tech Summit for 2019 is build on the momentum that we had last year.
Right.
So last year we had delegates from 31 countries come to Rwanda. And I think what we're seeing this year is greater attention across the continent on the event itself. So we're bringing together corporates, startups, investors and creatives. I suppose the main aim for us with the event is driving business and investment. It's not another event just talking about African tech. It's really around connecting corporates with opportunities, connecting startups with investors. And also on the creative side, we look more around what's happening in music, entertainment, virtual reality, because ultimately that's where a lot of the business is happening right now as well.
Of course, we're still looking at about 35 speakers being confirmed for the 3rd Annual Africa Tech Summit. Tell me though, what is the main direction that you're trying to take this year? What are we seeing as the biggest conversation at the event? Sure.
I think we've three distinct tracks. We'll have actually over 100 speakers speaking at the event. The Future Summit will really look at what's happening in tech verticals such as AI. So we have Microsoft who are going to give thought leadership on what they're doing in Africa with AI. If we look at blockchain, FinTech, what's happening in mobile payments. We heard about Safaricom there and what they're doing with credit as a service. That's becoming a huge new area within the FinTech space. The Startup Summit then will look at more connecting startups and investors. So we'll have startups from across Africa coming to Kigali to pitch to investors and also to corporates. Ultimately, the telcos, the banks, they want to work with these startups.
All right.
And our job is really to connect those. And then on the Creative Summit, we're really looking at connecting, the likes of Econet, who have a massive entertainment play. And we'll have some entertainers there as well. Some people who are doing really interesting things.
All right.
One remains nameless right now, but a Nigerian celebrity will be coming as well, talking about the music industry and what he's doing and how the music and tech industry collides.
Do you actually see a lot of music now running on the back of technology advancements?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the digitization of music, if we look at, Spotify, iTunes, that is the platform now where a lot of this music is played. I think one of the other areas that's really pertinent within the music and entertainment space is the legal side. How do you maintain copyright and how do you, infringements? So we'll also have a lot of discussion around that with some legal people from across Africa. And I think what Africa Tech Summit tries to do is bring together all those constituent parts. So you've got people who are in legal, people who are in tech, in music, but all those industries really combine. If we even look at the startup side, investment in startups from a recent Disrupt Africa report is over $300 million in 2018.
All right.
That's a massive increase. So the tech industry is growing exponentially each year in Africa.
You're speaking about this, and you bring me back, of course, to the FinTech, which we saw accounting for about 40% of all the deals that were signed, or the money that came into the startup sector as of 2018. Tell me, what do you see is driving a lot of attention towards this? Because we've seen a lot of growth, e-commerce, of course, FinTech, health, and all of this, but FinTech has specifically had a huge chunk of money going towards it. What do you think is driving that?
I think ultimately, FinTech is the backbone of all these other industries.
All right.
So if we look at e-commerce, e-commerce has struggled across Africa. If you look in Nigeria, Congo, Shut Up Shop, a lot of the other players are really struggling. So that market's not quite there yet. But FinTech is the backbone of all these industries. And I think that's why so much money has come into FinTech. If we look at Jumo, Cellulent, Yoko, Paystack, all these guys have raised substantial amounts of money in the last couple of years. But the FinTech backbone needs to be there for e-commerce to work, for all these other services to work on top. But I think what we're going to see is a lot more investment in other areas. AgTech is allegedly the new FinTech now. If we look at the potential for agriculture and across Africa, in terms of employment and driving income, I think you're going to see a huge more investment in the ag tech sector as well.
Are we seeing regulators going with this trend?
I mean, unfortunately, I think that the regulators are probably behind the curve in terms of the innovators that's happening across Africa. If you look at blockchain, I mean, the Kenyan government set up a blockchain task force. really to, rather than stop saying we can't use blockchain and we can't use crypto, let's figure out how we can do this. So we will have Batengo Ndemo, who is from Kenya, from the AI Blockchain Task Force. He will be actually speaking at the conference around what that blockchain task force has decided and what they're, setting the regulations. Because I think we need to embrace blockchain. Crypto is obviously a grey area, a murky area. But I think ultimately we need to get to a point where governments, the tech industry, come together and form this regulation.
And are we yet to see governments be at the Africa Tech Summit, at least to discuss some of these conversations? Because it's not about one single market or one single economy, but the rest of Africa, 54 plus countries. Yeah. Tell me, is this something that you're actually looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm delighted to say the Rwandan Ministry of ICT and the local Rwandan government are very supportive of the event that they attend. I think in terms of the regulatory side, I think not every government wants to talk about blockchain regulation right now because everybody's still figuring it out. I don't think this is an African thing. I think it's a global thing. If we look at the US regulator and if we look at the European regulators, they don't really have a regulation yet on some of these cryptos and blockchain assets. But I think our aim is really to bring people from across Africa and also outside of Africa to Africa Tech Summit to have those discussions. And I think it's meaningful to have everybody in the room who are stakeholders. But I think if you look at the Nigerian government, they have brought in players like BitPesa to help them and guide them on the regulation.
Biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway, come to Kigali, February 14th and 15th. I think for us, it's really around driving business and investment forward and connecting the tech ecosystem here in Rwanda, which has a fantastic vision for ICT and is really setting the tone for the rest of the continent.
All right, thank you.